Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome back to week 3 of the YouTube Accelerator. I'm Tina Campbell. I'm CEO and or COO of Free Enterprise Warriors, or as we say, few, or the few that serve the many. In week 1, we were about getting started. Week 2 was about getting clear, and today is about getting clicks. Because here is the reality. You can have a great message, a great business, even a great video. But if no one clicks, none of that matters. Today is one of the most practical sessions that we're going to have, one of the few. We're going to focus on how to position your video so people actually stop, pay attention, and watch. And Ross is going to walk you through exactly how to do that, from titles to thumbnails to what makes someone have to click on it. So, quick reminder, this is not about perfection. It's about testing, learning, and improving. So, Ross, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was let's see. There we go. There's- exactly what she said. Like this is all about getting the click. And if you don't get the click, all your efforts spent making the video and everything else is wasted. So this is about the art and science of actually getting people interested in your video. And the way you do that is through what's collectively called packaging. And that refers to your title of the video and the thumbnail of the video. That's all you have to communicate what your video is about and why someone should click it. And then we're going to talk about the importance of it all, the some examples of good and bad packaging, how to measure results, like what is actually working or what's not working, and then how to get good at it. This is going to be really, really practical, like exercises that you can do to practice this and what I call develop your taste when it comes to packaging. And then I'm going to show you some packaging tools that you can use to make your thumbnails, to, we talked about swipe files before. We're going to talk about that a little bit more today. And then also ways that you can preview your packaging before you actually post to YouTube. So, first of all, what is packaging? Like I said, it's the title and thumbnail. Plus, one thing that people overlook is the video length as well. Because this is exactly what shows up when somebody's typing in a topic or if this pops up on somebody's homepage. And this is a video that I released last week, by the way, and it'll be an example that comes up throughout this. But this would pop up, like, let's say somebody subscribed to my channel, this might pop up in their home feed, or if somebody's typing in this query, like Descript versus these are two softwares, let's say they're comparing them, then this is what would show up in their search and determine like either this video is interesting or not, and they click on it, or they click on somebody else's video if it looks more appealing. So basically, what you have to work with is the thumbnail, which is the visual, the title, which is this part right here that appears below the thumbnail, or it could be next to the thumbnail, depending on where the viewer is seeing it. And then again, like I mentioned, the video length. This isn't often talked about, but that shows up on the thumbnail. And this can be very important. If the video is like the complete guide to Descript and it's a 3 minute video, well, that doesn't sound very complete. But if it's like a 2.5 hour video, then that's communicating information about this video. So, anyways, that's often overlooked is the length of the video is part of your packaging. And there's one emotion that you want to create in a viewer when they see your packaging, and that's curiosity. So good packaging creates a curiosity gap that leaves the viewer with no choice but to click on the thumbnail. So they're like, um, why do I need to choose wisely? Or it could be like, in the case of this particular title, or the title could be a question like, why should you choose Descript over DaVinci Resolve? And then the viewer's like, well, I don't know. Why should I? And then that's what you're trying to create is curiosity to get them to click on the video and solve that little bit of discomfort known as curiosity. So the importance of packaging, YouTube, this is a reframe for you. Like YouTube is often classified as a social media, but I would argue that it's not a social media. Social media is like Instagram or TikTok where you're scrolling and you have no choice in what appears next. Whereas YouTube, the viewer pulls. So that's what I call being pushed to you. You're just swiping and something's appearing and you don't control what that is. to an extent. YouTube, the viewer is pulling content. Like when you're appearing on their homepage, you're one of 12 things that are showing up there. And they're choosing the one that they want to pull rather than it just appearing and being fed to them. And then alternatively as well, they might be searching for your content. So we talked about the problem that you solve for a viewer. If they're searching for that thing, then they're pulling what they want to get. They want to solve a problem and they're specifically looking for that. So I'd encourage you to reframe how you think about YouTube as this, that they're pulling stuff from you. And then on that note, your incentives and YouTube's incentives are aligned. You want people to watch your video, and YouTube wants people to watch the videos on their platform and stay on their platform. So the best videos will get rewarded, and having good packaging can make sure that that happens. And then your effort, like I said, is wasted if you don't get the click. So that's why this is, if you've ever heard of the 80-20 principle, like 20% of your efforts get 80% of the results. This is where you should focus 20% of your efforts. Like all the stuff related to your actual video, like your script and your camera and all the stuff that we're going to talk about in the coming weeks, like all of that is secondary to this little bit of effort that you can put into writing really good titles and making really good thumbnails. Because you got to get that click first. And then if anyone knows David Ogilvy, he's a famous, now deceased, I believe, from like a long time ago. And he was a famous ad man, copywriting expert. And he said, when you've written your headline, you've spent 80 cents out of your dollar. And if you adjust that to YouTube, when you've made your packaging, you've put 80% of your efforts and 80% of where you're going to get results out of your efforts, I should say. And the pros, like the biggest names in YouTube, they start with the packaging before they even write a single word of their script or hit record. Like they have their packaging made before they even say, okay, this is a video worth spending our time on. And you can, using some of the techniques I talked about last week, you can validate ideas before you ever hit record. You can go see what is working in your niche and like kind of get a baseline for like, I expect this video is going to do this amount of views if I nail the execution. Rules of thumb, and these are really small. It's a lot here. I'm not going to explain all of these, but I'm sure Tina can include this in some of the after action stuff or send out the slides. But I did highlight a couple of the most important ones. And I'm going to show you some good and bad examples so you can see these in action in a moment. But maximum of 4 words in the thumbnail. So real quick, I'm going to just go ahead a slide. This right here is, and I already showed you the examples of the packaging, but like the title appears below the thumbnail and then the thumbnail is up here. And so this was an example of bad packaging. You can see all the text that was included in this particular thumbnail. So you shouldn't have more than 4 words in the thumbnail. And these should work together. So the image and the title should complement each other to create that curiosity gap that I mentioned. So use 4 words in the thumbnail, maximum of 4 words. It could be 0 words, and that should complement what's in the title. And then use simple sans serif font. Don't use, handwriting font or cursive, or because one thing that you're going to hear me just repeat over and over is like, keep it simple, keep it clear, keep it immediately understandable, which is this point, appeal to the monkey brain. So they should instantly see your packaging and know immediately what it's about, be able to guess what this video is about. And then keeping in mind hierarchy for the order that you want the viewer to look. This is another important thing. So I'll point out hierarchy as we go, but this is like, if you have one key thing that you're talking about, that should be the brightest, most attention grabbing element in your thumbnail. It shouldn't be buried behind a bunch of other stuff if that is the most important thing. So hierarchy is making the most important thing the most visible and then going down in order of importance. Just like I did, actually, this is a perfect example. just the way that I bolded this, that's an example of hierarchy. I'm drawing your attention to what's important on this page while kind of letting the lesser important stuff go back into the background. And then here's another example of hierarchy. There's the title, there's the biggest text on the page, and then the subtitle is the next biggest, and so on. And then, as it says there, know the rules so that you can break them. Like for every single rule on here, I could show you examples of thumbnails that performed very, very well and broke some or all of these rules. So, that's when you're starting out, try to follow these, but over time, you can adjust them and break the rules when it makes sense. Okay, so examples of bad packaging. This one is title in the thumbnail. So this is the title. Will business owners be able to sell their businesses in 2023? That exact title is right there in the thumbnail as well. So it's redundant. And you want to avoid that as much as possible. Like instead of this, they could have some different text up here. And I'll in a second I'll show you the good examples, but they could use some cognitive dissonance where there's some text up here that contradicts this or adds some fear to this, like business owners aren't selling or something like that. Something that adds stakes to this particular title. This is the thing I don't like about this thumbnail is low contrast. So what I mean by that is they've got blue text on a blue background. So I can't read that at all from where I'm sitting right now. Um, and it's just hard to read. So that's another thing you can take from that is it should be super, super easy to read. And then templated. I can tell that this was made from Canva. And if you've not used Canva before, seen the kind of templates that they have, it might not be obvious to you. But there's a certain look that I look at that, I'm like, okay, this guy just dropped this into a Canva template and didn't put any effort into it. Um, and then this one is just very cluttered. Like there's a little free sign hanging off. There's elements in the background. There's something up there, a logo of some type. There's just information all over the place, and it's very cluttered. So I'm all about simplicity. Have like three elements in your video, in your thumbnails, and I'll show that in the good examples so you can see how that looks. This next one is using a visual metaphor. So this is something tempting to do, and it's something that AI will tell you to do because, well, because AI just doesn't know or it thinks it's being clever. But if a viewer sees this, they're not going to know usually what this means. And so this one says, "Is your job toast?" And the guy's pointing at a picture of a burnt toast. Um, so it sounds creative, it sounds interesting, but it just takes too long for somebody who's giving this thumbnail half a second if they're making a viewing decision, and it just doesn't work. Visual metaphors don't work. Along with that, I don't have that on here, but inside jokes, that was actually in my rules here. Some people have inside jokes where there's like maybe they mention something in their video and they like maybe he made a joke about let's pretend that this is an inside joke. He made a joke about toast in his video. Well, no one's seen the video yet, so they don't know that. And you also have to assume that if this is a recurring joke in his videos, you have to assume for the cold audience, people who have never seen him before, that they're not going to understand that. So avoid visual metaphors and inside jokes. Um, this one, tiny and too much text. I mentioned don't have more than 4 words. Almost all of these violate that rule, except for this one. It's got 4 words. Violate the rule of too much text. There's just way too much text on all of these. And this one has tiny text. So right there, he's got like a checklist with different things. I can't read those at all from where I'm sitting. And you got to keep in mind, some people might be seeing this on their cell phone on a very small screen. And I'm going to show you some tools at the end of this talk today that can help you visualize that. But that's one trick for you too, is you can pull up these images on your phone, hold it arm's length away, and if you can't read it, your viewers won't be able to read it. Just assume they can't. And then using AI. There was a brief window where AI was novel and things like this worked because people are like, "Whoa, how do you do that? That looks really interesting." we're past that. People, when they see AI now, they're like, nope, click away. Not not going to give that my time. Probably a low effort video. So, examples of good packaging. Now, I have 7 categories of techniques that you can use, and I pulled some examples. These aren't necessarily the best examples. They're just some examples that I had screenshotted this morning while I was scrolling on YouTube to prepare this. So, number one, and this is one that this is probably my favorite, is cognitive dissonance. So, that's putting something in the title that goes against what people thought to be true. So one example here is getting rich is super easy, and it's framed as a quote from Jeff Bezos. But something like that, like everyone assumes getting rich is really hard. So what does he mean it's really easy? Let me check that out. Or here's one: bring back friction. So normally everyone's trying to make their lives easier with less friction. So what's he talking about? Bring back friction, and he's got a picture of a typewriter and a CD-ROM and an iPod. So it's like putting something that goes against what you think everyone would want, being rich, being fit, being happy, whatever, like something cognitive dissonance related to that. Um, Comparison. This is one where you show a before and after in the thumbnail. And so here's one with like presumably a doctor, and it shows a before of a heart and it looks sick and discolored. And then after it looks healthy. And the famous example with these is like weight loss. You have like a before picture where someone's overweight and an after picture where they have a six pack and they're smiling. Um, so this can be really, really effective depending on what it is that you're doing. It could be like if you're in financial services, it could be before and shows somebody poor, and then after it shows somebody rich and happy, something like that. And then the result, this is very similar, but slightly different in that it just shows the result in the thumbnail. And the 2 examples I pulled here are a graph going up. And this, by the way, is also employs cognitive dissonance. So you can have multiple of these different techniques that you're using in your thumbnail. But don't be original is kind of like a little bit of cognitive dissonance there. And then it's showing a result in that there's this graph going up. And this particular guy talks about YouTube. So he's talking about your views going up. And then this works really well in the financial space where you have a graph going up. Or if you're talking about some sort of, don't do this, don't invest in this thing, and the graph is crashing behind you, those work really well because it's just showing at a glance like what's going to happen if I do this thing. And then examples of good packaging, and all of these examples are mine. So, yeah, these are just actual videos that I've used. One is social hacking, and this is harnessing someone's fame or recognition to get attention. And this is a famous investor, Naval Ravikant, and this was a video I did about a product that he invested in called AirChat. And so I point that out because like the product itself wasn't that big of a deal, and it's been since been shut down. But a lot of people know Naval Ravikant, and when they see his face, that carries a lot of weight. And they're like, "Oh, it's a video about Naval. He's got a lot of fans," and so I'm going to click on that. Um, this can also be brands. It doesn't have to be people. So if you put in a Coca-Cola logo or an Apple logo, that's drawing on their fame to your top. And it should make sense. Don't just throw it up there just for the sake of doing it. Like that should be what the video is about. But that can be a really powerful way to get the click. And then just a note, be careful because you may become a channel about other people and attract their audience. So if I didn't want people who are fans of Naval watching my channel, then this is a risky tactic because I'd start moving my subscriber base towards people who are just Naval fans. And then another technique is curiosity. So in this one, and this is a little bit of cognitive dissonance as well, it says one big regret. And this was me reviewing a computer, Mac Mini M4. And yeah, it's curiosity. Yeah, with the curiosity, it's like, what's the one big regret? So somebody wants to click on it and figure out what was my one big regret with buying this particular computer. The minimal, this is actually my top performing thumbnail of all time. And all it is my hand, a picture of my hand holding a cell phone, and then four words. It says it's Android but private. And there's nothing in the background. It's just a solid off-white background. That's it. And the downside is it can require strong photo skills to do right, or to get right. And it should look very aesthetically pleasing. And then another one is concealing information. And this is actually a video I released this morning. And it's a picture of the software that I teach, the video editing software. And I'm saying use this, and there's an arrow pointing at a box, and the information in that box is pixelated out. So you can't read what it is. And so they're like, along with the title that says 3 easy Descript tricks for faster edits. So someone's like, wait, what is that? What is that button? What should I be clicking? They click on the video, and that gets them into the topic. As
Ross,
for how,
Ross,
yeah,
sorry, before we go on, I know I have a couple questions. I'm wondering if
sure.
anybody does about this particular. First of all, that's a lot of, great ways to, with thumbnails to attract attention. So I see sometimes people are pretty popular and they're just using one way. So usually it's like, cognitive dissonance. And that's all I'll see. And they'll just keep doing that over and over. Do you
Yep.
subscribe to that, or do you say, try to use and see what works best, but, or keep people interested by changing it up? What's your opinion?
Well, I do have this goes back to this slide I used last week about experimenting to find your content creator fit. And yeah, at first you have no idea. So just try all of them, just try cycle each video, do a completely different thing. And eventually, remember these green ones indicate successes, above average videos. Eventually you'll have a video that does really well, and then you try it again, and then you just keep doing that. And every like once you do find a style that works for you, 1 out of 4 can be an experiment, because eventually what works will stop working,
Right.
usually. I mean, but yeah, totally, that is the name of the game. Once you find one that works, like you double down on that. You're like, okay, here's what people like from me, and you keep doing it, while throwing in a mix of experiments.
Okay. And the other question I had is when you use other brands or likenesses of people, is that not a trademark issue, or you could just use anyone?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of. You don't get copyright strikes for images in your thumbnails. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the answer to
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But people do it. Like I mentioned, Coca-Cola and Apple, and yeah, as long as it makes sense, like you're talking about that topic. Um,
John has a
as
question on that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John, if you unmute yourself.
Hear me?
Yep.
yep,
Uh, yes, a lot of people do that. That's a scary thought to jump into and find out, well, is Coca-Cola bottling company coming after me or someone else with a team of lawyers?
right.
Um, where I see a lot of copyright strikes, where I hear people talking about them and it happening, is people that are doing reactions to music videos,
Mm,
which is a big YouTube category.
right.
And they have to be extremely careful or they get taken down or they even get their channel removed over it. So I'm just offering caution as you start using other people's images that you have no legal right to, and their brand information. To me, when you said that, it's like a red flag to me.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wondered about like I wonder if you could just kind of take a Coke can, which is very you know, you're aware of that, what that looks like, and kind of,
Yeah.
just, blank out the name or something like that. Maybe that's a way to, just something that's recognizable but isn't the exact likeness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If it's your own image, like that's always going to be safe.
Yeah.
like, so yeah, definitely always look into the terms of whichever brand you're using. And a lot of them, like YouTube, for example, if you're putting a YouTube image in your video and you're talking about it, then they have a page where you can download their logo. It's publicly available. They're like, here's the logos you're allowed to use. And of course you can't defame them, or they don't want you to defame them, but uh yeah, every service has their own rules on using their logo and stuff like that. So
Could I throw something else in on that?
yeah.
The examples that I sent last week, a young man named Will Prowse, he's been doing review videos. And so he might have a product like recently, he's got a big fight going on with Battleborn Batteries, the largest producer of lithium ion batteries in this country, very expensive. And he used to be a fan of theirs, did great reviews for them, but lately they're not. And they're taking great issue with him, and they're going back and forth. So when you're reviewing a specific product, you have to show that product's information. You're also risking the ire of the company you're reviewing. I just want to put that again on the table.
Yep, absolutely.
Tina, Joel has put an important little piece there in the chat area that will help in the future.
Okay, great.
Oh yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
I,
Yeah,
IP
we'll
lawyer.
have an IP lawyer doing an accelerator. That's great. Thank you.
So as for how to measure results, there's inside of the analytics for a video. This is a screenshot from YouTube Studio where you can see in this particular video, there is the analytics tab and then reach. So this is how far your video has propagated to people. And you get what's called impressions. So this video has gotten 9,500 impressions at the time I screenshotted this. That number is how many times my packaging, the title and thumbnail, showed up in either people's homepage or on their search results or on they're watching a video and then on the sidebar where YouTube suggests other videos. So every single time that it's shown, that's an impression. And then from those impressions, there is the impression click-through rate. And this one has 4.2%. So that's how many times out of that 9,500, the video, the packaging was actually clicked. And then that trickles down to the number of views. Now, it's not a direct, like this isn't 584 divided by 9,500. It's not going to be a direct ratio because some of these views come from direct sharing, like if somebody emails it out or sends it in a text or things like that. But generally, that's going to be the number of views is how many people actually click on your video from the times that it was given an impression. And over time, you'll develop a baseline for what a good CTR for your channel is. And then higher impressions. So sometimes you'll get videos that have 100,000 impressions, 1,000,000 impressions. And in that case, again, this is all, relative to the size of your channel. Like if you're just starting out, 1,000 impressions is great. But when you've been doing this for a while, you might start getting into the millions of impressions. And so anyways, generally higher impressions relative to your baseline is going to result in lower CTRs because YouTube is pushing your video out to colder audiences. So at first, when you first release a video, in the first few minutes, you might see like super, super high CTRs, like 50% or even 100%, where YouTube has only shown your video to 10 people. It's only given it 10 impressions, but it's your best audience. YouTube starts by showing it to the people who like your content the most. And so you'll see super high CTRs at first, and then over time it'll drop. And if YouTube's testing it out with a colder audience, that number might get very, very low, like 2% or 1%. And then one note on the word clickbait. So one thing that makes people uncomfortable with all these title and with packaging in general, and I went through this as well. It feels very uncomfortable to write these like sensational feeling titles. Um, like, let's see, what were some of my examples here? One big regret, like early on, I would never have done that. That would have just felt like over the top clickbait. But it's only clickbait if you don't deliver on the promise of that packaging. In the early days of YouTube, clicks were all that mattered. So people were crazy with this kind of stuff. There would be like it would be a video about software, but there was like a woman in a bikini or something like that. And it had nothing to do with the video. It just was all about getting that click. That doesn't work anymore, because if you do that, then someone's going to click on the video, instantly realize this video is not what it was promised to be about, and they click away, and YouTube gets enough of that data, they stop showing it. So what matters now is a data point that isn't, it's not an official data point, but it's kind of the aggregate of all of these things we've talked about, liking and commenting and watching the whole video. That's what's called viewer satisfaction. And so that's what YouTube is building a profile of. It's checking the viewer satisfaction of a particular video. And if it's high, then it's going to push it out to more people. So if your viewer satisfaction is high, then you're delivering on the promise of your title and thumbnail. YouTube likes that. They're going to push it out to more people. Now, as for how to develop what is good packaging, develop taste around how to make these titles and thumbnails. I have here Benjamin Franklin taught himself writing by copying the greats. So if I'm not mistaken, the term copywriting actually comes from people just handwriting, copying, an ad they like, or even book, like an entire book, word for word. Like, this is a great book. What is it that makes it great? And you can learn that by cloning it. And so that's an exercise I did early on, is I cloned thousands of thumbnails. I tried to match the shading and the colors and the fonts and like all this kind of stuff to just like learn, first of all, how to do it, the mechanics of like making it inside of the software, but then also learning like what is working about this. And by building it, you notice all these details, like the way they shade something to make something stand out, or like all these little tiny details. And so it takes a lot of time, but that's how you can do it, is just cloning the best of what's out there. And this goes back to the swipe files I talked about last week. You're over time screenshotting titles and thumbnails that you like and adding that to your swipe file, and then adjust the titles to your topic. So I have here an example. Let me reposition this here so you can see it. So here's some screenshots of thumbnails I saw that I liked. And then below are my take on it. So I liked how they put in a lot of different tools. And in this particular video, I was talking about a lot of different tools. So I displayed them in different ways. And then in this one's like totally different, but he's sitting in front of a bunch of different physical products. But I like that idea. I was like, maybe I can do that with software, where it's like my hand, there's like a software product on my hand or something. I didn't end up doing that, but this is kind of just to show you, you're capturing ideas and then you adjust it into your own. And then you can make multiple different styles. And I'll show you that in another example, which is this bottom one here. For when you're starting out, my recommendation is to create 3 completely unique styles of potential thumbnails. And for each of those unique styles, have 3 unique variations. So maybe your facial expression is slightly different, or there's different text, or the colors are a little bit different. So I'll show you how that looks in practice with this one. So each row is a different style. I'm doing something different. Like in one, I'm doing this with my hand on my face. One, I'm pointing at my computer, and one, I'm holding up my computer. And then within that, there's 3 variations. So in this one, it's just a plain black background. This one, I got like a bookshelf behind me, etc. So you can see how this works. Like you're taking 3 completely unique styles and then 3 variations. And then you could, with this group, you could show us your ideas and we could say, I like this one that you made here, or I think you could do this instead, or combine these elements. But this is just a really powerful way to um, start honing in on styles that work for you. And in a second, I'm going to show you A/B testing so that you can actually run 3 different tests at once and see which one performs the best. And so back to this image here. Let's say that, well, I already explained this. Yeah, you're basically running experiments until you find a style that works, that performs way above average, and then you double down on that and you recreate that for your future videos. So the one I mentioned that you can do A/B tests on those. Let me actually show you the same video I've been using as an example. The A/B test I have running on it right now.
Ross, just in case people don't know what A/B test is, just define that quickly.
Yeah, so it'll make sense when I show this.
Okay.
So A/B testing is running multiple versions to determine what works or not. And so YouTube has this built-in feature. This is inside of YouTube Studio. And this is the thumbnail that I showed you in my screenshot earlier. And this is one of 3 thumbnails that is running. So if theoretically, if 3 different people see my video, all 3 of those might see a different thumbnail on their homepage. So person A sees this, person B sees this, and person C sees this. And YouTube is just cycling through those to see which ones are the most effective. And I thought this one would be the best performer, and it's not. It's only gotten 26% of the watch time out of people who have clicked on that thumbnail. And this one is actually doing the best right now. And so this, with YouTube's built-in A/B testing feature, it automatically runs for 14 days. And then at the end, it's going to pick the best performer. And this data could still change. Like this is, if this video starts picking up a ton more impressions, then with a different type of audience, these numbers could flip. But for now, this is the leader. And I could stop this test and I could say, set this option. And now that becomes the only thumbnail for this video. But this is a really powerful way to test out those 3 different styles that I told you to try. So, and this isn't a great example because these are very similar. The only difference is my facial expression. So ideally, this would be a totally unique 3rd style. And that way I get even more data. I'm like, okay, there's something about my face in the photo that works, or there's something about having the logos that work, or whatever it is. Have these be completely unique so that you can get that information. Now you can also, I can't see, the only thing I can do right now is see it. I can start a new test. And in addition to testing the thumbnails, which I'm doing right now, you can test just the titles. So I could have like one thumbnail, let's say, and that's what I would follow this up with. So if I determine that this is the winner, then I could then test 3 fresh titles, different titles. And then based on the best title, I could do a new thumbnail test and just keep reiterating over time. Or you can do a combination of the 2. You can test title and thumbnail together, which I don't recommend because then you're getting into 2 variables and you're not learning what's working or not working. But anyways, that's built into YouTube and I highly encourage using it. As for making the thumbnails, I'm on Canva right now. We talked about that last week. Canva's powerful. You can start using it for free, and it's a great way to make thumbnails. And then your swipe files. If you haven't set that up yet, then make sure you're capturing as you're on YouTube. Oh, I don't think I had this in here, but pay attention to what you actually click on. Assuming you're a user of YouTube, what videos do you actually click on? Go back, screenshot the packaging, and pay attention. Like, why did I click on that? Probably because of the curiosity gap. You're like, I wanted to see what this guy had to say about X topic. And so start building your swipe files and honing in on what works. And then a couple other tools for you. Thumbnailtest.com is similar to YouTube's A/B testing, but more powerful. Instead of just 3 titles or 3 thumbnails, you can do, I think, over 10. Like you could really do a lot, and it'll cycle through all of those, show them to different viewers. And it is a third party, so you have to pay for it. But it gives you a lot more data and a lot more flexibility in what you're testing. So that's kind of like the varsity level of YouTube's A/B testing. Thumbsup.tv, I'll just demonstrate these because they're good to see. So this is a really simple website. This is all it is. You don't have to create an account or anything. And I'm going to pull in my thumbnail, the one I just showed you. And you just drag it in and drop it. This is just the file, the JPEG or PNG file of that thumbnail. And then you type in a potential title that you're considering. So like I'll say how to choose between DaVinci and Descript. And then if I scroll down, it's a preview of how this will look on different devices. So in a web browser, on the homepage, it'll look like this, where the title's below it, your channel name would be right there, your channel profile would be right there, and the title or the time of the video would be right there. And so then you can just scroll through here, and here's how it would look on the sidebar, where the title is on the right side of the thumbnail, and you can see how tiny that is. And then if you scroll through here even more, you can see how it would look on mobile and in a column view in mobile, and even how it would look on Apple TV, and then the original image. And then if you toggle this, you can see how it would look for people who are on dark mode. And this is extremely important because sometimes there's things that look great in light mode, and then they look horrible or unreadable in dark mode. So important to just cover all your bases and see how it looks on all devices. Another one is Thumbnail Grabber. So this one, oops, let me go here, Thumbnail Grabber. So this one, you paste in a YouTube video. Let me demonstrate with my own video here. So I'm gonna copy the link for this video and then paste it in, and you say get thumbnail image. And these are downloadable. You can download the thumbnail for this particular video. So the reason you might do this is in the case of the way I told you how you can learn all of this, you could download thumbnails that you like from other creators, and you could add it to your swipe file. You can use it as a starting point when you're editing your own. But anyways, just a quick and easy way to grab thumbnails off of YouTube. And then oneof10.com, I talked about this last week, but this will make a little bit more sense now that you've learned a little bit more about titles and thumbnails. If I go to my channel and I go to videos, this is one of 10 right here, the free browser extension that I introduced you to last week. So what it's doing is before every video, it's putting in that number, like this one, 0.7x. So that's actually an underperformer for me. So relative to my average, that's a 4-day-old video. At this point in that video's life cycle, it's underperforming, and that's what that's telling me. So this would not be a good thumbnail to copy. However, that's an 8.5x outlier. It's got 5,500 views. So if you were my competitor, you could look at this and be like, I wonder what's working about that thumbnail. What can I do better? And you could grab that, make your adjustments, change it to your topic, your face, that kind of stuff, and go from there. And lastly, the breakout sessions. We're down to the last 10 minutes. So we're going to take 8 minutes, and then in your breakout group, discuss which of the thumbnail styles stood out to you. Are there any that you think will work for your topic, or which ones are you going to try? And then what style does your favorite creator use? So if there's something you've noticed before that your favorite creators are using, discuss those and what you think works about them.
Ross, I was going to say, if they have never met, you guys, if you don't know each other, tell each other what your YouTube channel is going to be about. I think that's the number one. I mean, they can just say, "Oh, that's, that sounds interesting," or maybe you need to niche it down a little bit more, right? I think that's what we want to. I want to say that was really interesting. I love when you give those apps that we can use. That's really helpful. And I wanted to let everybody know now that that last week, the 6 week, we're going to actually, if you want to, show your YouTube channel to each other. And I think it's kind of like a show and tell for those people that will want to do that, and we'll talk to each other. And let me break out again. If you don't know each other, tell each other um, what your channel's about. And we'll bring you back in about 7 minutes.
Awesome.
Just accept these, and you'll be on your way. Paul and Lauren, are you guys available to go into breakouts, please? Just accept that.
I won't be able to do a breakout.
Oh, okay.
Just to let you know. Sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. So we do the last. You don't have to talk. It's just with Brian and Lauren. If you want to
Oh,
just go in
okay.
and talk to them. Yeah, you're just talking
Okay.
for 8
Okay. All
minutes.
right.
Okay, good. You don't have to go on camera. Just accept the. Okay, in the last couple of minutes, any feedback, any question, please unmute yourself, raise your hand. Any questions? Just to let you know, next th Thursday at our after action review, Ross will be traveling, so you got me. I'm sure Joe will be there if you want to come on and actually talk about what's going on with your business, talk about what's happening with YouTube. Won't be able to give you what Ross knows, but we certainly can work together on ideas. And go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just want to. I was debating bringing it up now, but Michael did bring it up, and Ross and I have talked about this at length. And Ross, maybe we could impose upon you for a final comment. Something like what we just went through can become a psychological block to a lot of people. And for our military community, I'm constantly evaluating how we approach this. We've spent a decade trying to figure out how do you make the idea of a profit and loss statement and how do you make the idea of a business plan not intimidating to a potential founder. It's the same thing with YouTube. And I have some of the same reservations. I don't want to spend an hour figuring out a thumbnail. That's just not in me. I'm used to trying to have a qualified person do it for me and me orchestrate the market. However, the phenomenal thing I'm learning, and being a part of Ross's class has really been helpful to me. And Ross will endorse this because I've heard him say this. Don't be intimidated by any one of these seeming blocks to YouTube because it's different from any other thing you've ever done. YouTube is very forgiving and very endorsing of trial and error. And with AI and everything that's there now, um, you can really overcome those obstacles very easy. And it's not like a website and everything as it has to be perfect when you get out there. I've seen many, many, many now that I'm watching the YouTubes. Many of the producers that are doing 1 million subscribers talk about their first 2 or 3 years. And that was before a lot of the technology is available today. if I've ever seen any, it's like running an obstacle course. We had this, I mean, again, the the more you run a given obstacle course, there's a tricks at every single point in an obstacle course to get the max score, but you don't have to do the max score to get through the obstacle course. And just getting out there is the key thing with YouTube. I'm telling myself this all the time, and I want to really us learn from this, Tina, and how we ensure that people are not intimidated by what is really very simple and very forgiving things.
Well, I know that it's a quote that was attributed to Mark Twain, and that was continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection.
Yeah,
So,
I like that.
get out there and my mentor, Dave Jenks, for those of you who knew him, he would just say, ship it.
Yeah. And I just really want to comment, Ross, and then if you could, again, I've said this several times. I was anti YouTube. I mean, I didn't think it was worth my time, but I've become an absolute fanatic for what YouTube is, and I'm probably spending an hour a day. I would have never thought that was it, but I'm watching every video. I've set up the different channels. I'm trying to evaluate why I listen to you, just like Ross was saying, why I click on a thumbnail, why I respond, understanding in the back of my mind now that I'm understanding AI. YouTube is evaluating everything I do for what it feeds to me. And once it figures out me, they've got another, God help us, there's another million me they can feed my information to. So they're evaluating what I respond to because they're figuring out my market or what interests me. And the beautiful thing is I don't have to go to those markets. I can find out what I like and then go see what those people are producing. And there's several now. I only subscribed to my first channel 2 weeks ago, and I've been watching now for about 4 or 5 months. I wanted to pick myself. Then I set up other channels where I don't subscribe. And that's the biggest thing that's helped me understand what YouTube's doing. So I'll shut up and let Ross comment. He's the expert, but I'm only repeating some of what Ross has already told us. So I want to make sure you hear it from him.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, when I was starting out, I didn't have anything like this. Like everything I just showed you was from experience and from other courses that I've taken. And I made like probably 100 videos before I took a course or tried to like study this stuff. And so this is all to save you that learning curve, but at the same time, yeah, it's just about experience. And once you've made some thumbnails and you've started to put some videos out there and see what's working or not, then you have some experience to hang these theoretical stuff on. But yeah, at the end of the day, like getting something out there is better than nothing out there. So yeah, it's important to let imperfection or don't let perfection be the enemy of the good enough.
Right.
Because that's something that happened to me after I took a YouTube course where I was like, I got to do all this stuff by the book. I got to get it all right and all that. And as a result, I published nothing for a while. So yeah, so
But
take what's useful, implement a couple things at a time, and that's it. You grow as you go.
but Ross, you also said something really important. You were like, see what you like, and and Joe's saying the same thing. If you guys have to be a product of the product, you got to be going on YouTube in order to see, not only the algorithm of what you like Joe's saying, but also find out what people, potential subscribers will like. And Ross, we will be going over how to get subscribers, correct? In one of the next
Yeah, I mean
coming
it's part of
weeks.
this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Because I think once you also want to find out like how to ask for them, right? And
right.
and where to put that in your thumbnail videos, whatever you do. Okay, great. Is everybody good? Good. Okay. So again, Thursday, if you want to come on, same time, same Zoom room, same time, Thursday, it will be the Joe and Tina show on Thursday. And then otherwise we'll see you Tuesday and give us the next things there, next steps.
Yeah, yeah, just a couple things to work on. And this was John was in my breakout group, and he mentioned that he tried setting up Notion, and it was a lot, which it is. So I kind of just glossed over that. Like, here's how you do it. You can use anything at all you want. If anything you're familiar with is the right tool to use for making your swipe file, like if that's Apple Notes, if you don't have anything at all, like you've never used any tool that can capture notes, then I could try to find some like very beginner friendly tutorials of like, here's how to set something up. But it doesn't have to be Notion. That just happens to be the one I use.
What
And
about
so
Google? What about Google like Docs?
yeah,
Can't you just,
Google Docs. Google Docs is amazing and it's free. That's great. You can do it there. Even Canva, if you're starting to use Canva, you can like just like I did right here. These are screenshots that I took before this class started, and I just dragged them into this slide. And so this could be you could literally just set it up like this, call it bad packaging, and then you put in your screenshots here. So anyways, yeah, I'll try to find a resource for getting that set up, or make one. And then start screenshotting the packaging that grabs your attention and screenshot the packaging that you actually click on, most importantly. And then do the 3x3. So 3 unique styles and then 3 variations of each of those styles is a really good way to practice. And then take your favorite from each of the unique styles and run those as A/B tests when you actually post your video. And then lastly, attend the after action on Thursday, and you all can share thumbnails and get feedback and stuff in that call.
right? Okay. All right, this will go out as a recap recording, and I'll be sending that out hopefully in the next 24 hours. And any other questions, feel free to, you can always email me or Joe. We'll pass it along to Ross. And safe travels, Ross.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we'll see Ross on to next Tuesday.
Perfect. See y'all
Okay.
then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.